The 2020 schedule for Tennessee proved to be a difficult one because it was an all SEC schedule. Obviously, most SEC teams wound up playing a tougher schedule because of the fact that they were playing an all-conference schedule. Maybe there were some that it worked out for them. But Tennessee's schedule, very, very difficult last year when you look at the fact that they had to play Alabama, Auburn, and Texas A&M out of the West. There's a reason why their record wound up being 3-7, and a big part of that was because of who they had to play. And even Arkansas, they played Arkansas out of the West. Arkansas wound up being much better than we thought last year. So it was just a really, really, really tough schedule for Tennessee. We fast forward to 2021, and the schedule, I think, eases up for the Vols. It's not quite as bad. Here is that schedule. And before we go into the game-by-game, week-by-week schedule, let's first look at who they play outside of the SEC East, because we know they're going to play every team in the SEC East, obviously. In the non-conference, they will play Bowling Green, Pittsburgh, Tennessee Tech, and South Alabama. You talk about a transition year, a rebuild year. This is who you want to see on your non-conference schedule. Now, Pittsburgh will be a tough game, but other than that, Bowling Green, Tennessee Tech, and South Alabama, I think Tennessee fans will be happy with that. If you don't slip up, that's 3 wins right there. And then if they can beat Pitt and they can get a couple of wins in the SEC, this is a team that could get to 6-6. It's not that tough of a schedule. And again, we're going to look at the whole thing in a second. But out of the West, of course, they play Alabama every year, and that's just brutal having to play the Crimson Tide every single year. I think it's a big reason why Tennessee has not been able to really gain that momentum that they need as a program. Because Alabama has been so good and they have to play them every year. It just kind of puts you behind when you're talking about Florida playing LSU and Georgia playing Auburn. Yeah, LSU and Auburn are good, but they're not doing what Alabama's doing every single year. So that's always tough. And then Ole Miss is going to be a tough matchup this year. Ole Miss I expect to be a top 25 type team. So you don't get a very good draw there. But if you're talking about the SEC West, there really is no good draw, because I think every team in that division is going to be pretty good. I mean, you maybe want to get Mississippi State and Arkansas potentially. Maybe Auburn's down this year. But having to play Alabama obviously makes it very tough. Again, let's go game by game now, and we start with September 4th with Bowling Green. Nice way to start the season off. But then there's week 2, September 11th against Pittsburgh. Pitt's going to be a solid team. They're always a solid team, but they're not going to be a team that's going to overwhelm you. They're not going to be much more, if any more, talented than Tennessee. So that is a winnable game if things come together for this Tennessee team. And then Tennessee Tech after that. So there's a chance this team could start 3-0. But then you get into the SEC schedule, and it gets tough. You play Florida on September 25th on the road, then Missouri on the road on October the 2nd. Tough back-to-back there. Missouri should be pretty good again this year. South Carolina on October the 9th, maybe a little bit of an easier game there. Then Ole Miss on October 16th. On the road at Alabama October 23rd. We talk about it all the time. It's just a fact. Teams that play Alabama the next week typically lose. It happens all the time. So I think it actually might bode well for Tennessee to have a bye week after Alabama instead of before Alabama. You can recover from that game against the Crimson Tide, and let's be honest here, they're not going to win that game, and try to go down the stretch and maybe win 3 out of 4. It could happen, but that game against Kentucky is going to be tough on November 6th. Then they'll play Georgia November 13th, another game I don't really see them having much of a chance in. South Alabama there on November 20th, a winnable game. And then Vanderbilt to close it out November 27th, another winnable game. So there are winnable games on this schedule, but it's going to be pretty tough for Tennessee. When you look at the schedule overall, again, the non-conference, not all that tough. But what's interesting is the fact that you've got back-to-back road games twice. And those are the only road games on the schedule. You got Florida, Missouri, back-to-back. Alabama, Kentucky, back-to-back road games. Even though there is a bye week between there, everything else is at home. So they do have 8 games at home. That's nice. Plus you got a non-conference schedule, like I said, that's not too bad. And everything else being at home, if you say, hey, we're just going to lose all those road games. They're too tough. We're going to lose those games, even though Kentucky might be winnable. And then we're not going to beat Georgia. Georgia's just not going to be a win. Just let's face it. If they take care of business at home in the rest of their games, this team could go 7-5. So the schedule, again, sets up pretty well for Tennessee. Will it be enough for them to have a successful season? I don't know, because this program's a disaster right now. But at least the schedule does set up in a way, again, where Tennessee could have some success in 2021.